Yes, application
All right.
programming interface training.
All right. So API testing. So when you hear API actually means application programming interface. It's a collection of data, you know, in might be in a different file format. So we as the testers we get access to the collections and we test to validate and authenticate if all each endpoint are getting exact response as expected from the system. Now you tell me you don't understand anything. So we all know the training description. We'll learn how to test API using Postman, and it will also help us learn about the testing approach in the application programming interface. Then the agenda of this training, we will understand what is API. We will understand what is API, why API is important, and why why are APIs important. Then API testing definition, advantages, and the kind of bugs we encounter while testing API. Then also we talk about API testing approach and best practices, and we will also learn about API method and response type and key things to look out for while testing API as a tester, and the standard on the tools we use in API testing. There are different several tools we use in testing API, and one of the most generally used tool is Postman, which I drop the training the course link for you to last week for you to go through, and then we also know how to create our test API requests. Then after all said and done, we have a question and answer section. This is excuse me, guys. Just 2 minutes. Ah, can you all hear me? Hello,
Yes,
guys.
Yes,
Yeah.
David. Yes.
we can hear you.
Okay. Just because I've only just 14 of us on this call. Yeah. So as seen on the screen, so these are the agenda. So at the end of all the agenda, we'll have a Q&A section. There's a question and answer. So what is an API? So as I explained earlier, an API is stands for Application Programming Interface. An API is defined as a set of rules which contain clearly defined methods of communication. And API also helps different software components to interact with each other. And it can also be defined as a software to software interface that enables two applications to exchange data among each other and also interact. So, as defined that API is defined as a set of rules which contain clear defined method of communication. So, while testing API, there are several methods we use, in testing API in the sense of you sending requests and validating the response. So the main core of testing API is to validate response and validate response body, validate the time, validating the status code error, validating status code error, and okay, and it also helps with different software components to interact with each other. So in this kind of sense, they are trying to explain to us that um, looking at Uber, for example. Uber is an application app, that enables us to move from one point to one point, and for you to use Uber to navigate to where you are going, you know, it's either you use Uber Map or you use Google Map. So what I'm driving out is that as a user, we all experience this when we are using this Uber application. So we have an option of using the Uber app, I mean Uber Map, or you use Google Map. So the point of view using Google Map, to navigate your journey. Immediately you make that click or that tap on your device, and Google out pops up and start giving you navigation direction, to get you to where you are going. At that point, API call have already been executed, for Google Map to pop up on your screen to navigate your journey. So indirectly, API is a service, in between two applications. And another 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 good example is a a payment method. You go on Jumia website, and after shopping for whatever you want to shop on the Jumia shopping application, and you need to make payments. So and on listed payment page, there are different options. You can use to make your payment. Is either you are using the USSD code, or you are using bank transfer, or you are using your card. So in the process of you using card, as a preferred option, for your payment, so you input your card details, you input your card PIN, and it gets to a stage, whereby you have to get an OTP, to complete your transaction. So the communication between you inputting your card details and Jumia verifying your payment, for the goods. API calls has been executed, in between that space, for you to input your OTP to complete your transaction. So that is the major role that API plays on two application interaction. I hope we get that.
Yes.
So, I seen on my screen now uh, an image example of API service. So, as seen on the screen here, you can see an image of a woman and of a male and of a female, and you can see an ATM machine. So, this image you are seeing here is an ATM machine, and these are the these are the function you perform, for you to get cash out of this ATM machine. Number one, you slot in your card. Number two, you enter your PIN. The the then validation happens in between. PIN validation, in between your ATM card and the ATM machine. Then you enter amount. So once you enter amount, the API service also confirm, if cash should be granted, from your bank for you to get cash out of the ATM machine. You can say amount approved. It's just to check if you have enough balance, in your bank account to get out the cash from the ATM machine. Then the next one, the cash dispense, and the cash dispense, and then your account is being updated. Maybe you have 10,000 naira balance in your account and you withdraw 5,000 naira. So immediately the service will update your bank account, your balance account. You'll be updated, and you can see the image here is showing as a bank. So if you understand well, this is me here. I went to the ATM machine to get cash. I entered my PIN. At the point of me entering my PIN, this ATM machine and the bank is serving as a server, and this API service that is being happening here, it's validating my PIN if I enter the correct PIN, and after entering the correct PIN, I enter the amount I want to withdraw, and API service is validating if I have enough balance for me to make the transaction. And as soon as the service is has confirmed I have enough balance, my cash will be dispensed to me and my account balance will be updated. And this is another example of a login scenario using API service. So you can see a laptop, you can see a mobile device, then you can see YouTube, and you can see the API service. And what you are seeing here is a server. So this is a scenario of me going on my laptop and trying to log into Netflix or a YouTube account. Then I go to the URL, go to the login page, I input my login details, and I clicked on login button. So what has happened in between here? API service have make an interaction with the server. The API service have sent my username and password to this guy here, which is the server, and the server is returning back to the API service to give us login on the dashboard. Do we understand? Hello guys, do we get that? So
Yes, sir.
if I had entered invalid credentials, which is not registered into the server, which into the server, I'm going to get back. I'm supposed to get back an get back an error message saying invalid username or invalid password or invalid credentials. So this is the major role service that API perform, in between two applications or in between two applications or in between two softwares interaction. So we're just gonna move on to the next slide. And as you can see on the screen here, we have three tiers architecture of API service. So you can see the first line we have the client. That is the client, which is the presentation type. Then you can see API service is in between here. You send the request, API helps getting response, to give back to the client of the request you've sent. Then you have the server. We have the server in between here. Then we also have the database where our data is being stored. So more or less, API service is almost like a middleman, so to say. Like you walk into a restaurant and you want to purchase burger, at Chicken Republic. You walk in there, you place your request. The I think they call them runners or waitress. The waitress or the runner gives your order to the chef in the kitchen, and the chef starts preparing your order. So as soon as your order is being ready or done, the chef pass back to the runner or the waitress. Then the waitress okay, before the waitress pass to you, you have to have made payment, for the order, then passes back to you, and you enjoy your meal. Yeah. So where is API testing performed? So basically, as you can see on the screen, there are three layers where API is being performed. So number one, we have the presentation layer. Number two, we have the business layer, and number three, we have the database layer. So as you can see, the presentation layer is the UI functionality tested, which is the user interface. So example is your Facebook application, which you can view. Excuse me, guys. So I have to wait on that call. Please, just 2 minutes, guys. Tunde, mute, mute me and drop a message. Yes, I forgot I was muted. So, like I said, you can also automate API using different tools. And as mentioned earlier, we use Postman is generally accepted, in the industry, using Postman for API testing and creating collections. And while testing API, we can also set up environment for our test. And while testing API also, there are types of output you need to look out for while testing APIs. We have the any type of data. We have status, which is to say, which is to determine whether your request passed or failed. And we also have the call another API function, like I explained, using the Uber service for an example, and Google Map for an example. For an example, so the call another service is just like you are using an Uber app as a like I explained earlier, Uber app has an Uber map, and on the app you can decide to use the Uber map, or you use Google Map. So you clicking on Google Map to use Google Map to navigate you, that process is call another API function, and also the payment gateway. And I also mentioned there are several methods, we use in testing API. We have the get method, we have the post method, we have the delete method, we have the patch method, and the update method. There are actually several methods, we can use in testing API, but the four major methods we use by industry standard is the get method, the post method, the put method, and the delete method. So this is just a quote from Josh Walker, and says an analyst of forester research describe a building an application with no API as basically like building a house without no doors. And the API for all those computing purposes is how you open the blinds and the doors, and also exchange information. So this guy just trying to say API is a form of a gateway, and like he said, it just you building an application without no API. It's just like you building. It's just like you build you having a building structure which has no doors, to access the rooms, and to like having a building without no doors, like you can't access the rooms basically. So why API testing is important. API can be a service for developers. Every time developer writes a new program, they don't have to start from the scratch to build a core application that tries to do anything. Instead, they can contract out certain responsibility by using already created pieces that that do the job better. So this is trying to say you build an application, and while building an application, API documentation is created for the application. So in a way of you updating the application, you don't have to go from scratch to you know to build up back the application. You can just pick up the documentation and update the documentation and also deploy back. So next line says there is an API just for about anything we can think of according to the programmable web, and there are more than 20,000 published API services beyond this public exposed API, and the number of private API is estimated to be in millions. So we have several APIs services out there. We have public the public exposed APIs, and we also have the private APIs. So, like I explained earlier, API is a service, you know, like Google Map. Google Map has an API service key whereby you can use to you can integrate into your application. So you don't need to write a code. You don't need to build any code. All what you just need to do is just to get the API key and integrate on your application. And another example is Paystack. Paystack also have a public exposed API you can integrate with your e-commerce application, for payment integration for your customers and you to perform transaction on the application. Are we following? Hello, guys.
Yes, David.
Yes, you following.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes,
I'm
yes.
following.
So, as seen on my screen, like I mentioned earlier, there are several popular APIs examples, and you can see programmable web, like a site that tracks more than 50,500 API, lists Google Map, Twitter, YouTube, Flick, Amazon products, and etc. So this listed application, they have free API key source whereby you can just pick up the key and integrate on your application, being it a web application or a mobile application. And as said, the following list contains several examples of popular API. And as seen, we have Google Map, you have the YouTube API, we have the Flick API, we have the Twitter API, and we have the Amazon product advertising API. Let me see if I can show you a sample API key. So you don't think maybe it's a it's a it's a bulky stuff. So it's just a line of words. Let me show you what it looks like. API. Form. I think it's taking time. So let me just show you what it looks like here. So this is my own API interface as seen on my screen, and as you can see, I have several collections I've worked on. And you can see this is one of the API collections. So it's one of the requests. I say it's a post request, and I'm just going to send the request and get a response for you to see. So I was trying to get the sample API key for you to see what it looks like. Yeah, let me click on this image. So this is what it looks like. I've seen on the screen. I see this line. You can see this line. So it's a combination of alphabet and some unique digits. So let's just continue. Looks up continue. So while building your application, maybe you want to integrate Google Map into your application. You want to integrate YouTube into your application. You can just get the API key and just add it to your application, and you're fine. So with a single tap or a single click, you can use the service. So we've already mentioned what API testing means, and we all have idea of what API looks like. And also, what is API testing? As in, API testing is a type of software testing that that performs verification directly at the API level. It is the part of integration testing that determines whether the API meets the tester's expectation of functionality, reliability, performance, and security. And while testing API, like I explained earlier, you are validating the response body with what you have on the documentation. And before you start testing any API service or API collection, there must be a API documentation folder, available for you. So that API documentation is just like a guidebook, to the application. Okay, for example, let's say I want to perform a login function. Okay, as I'm stated on the API documentation, once I send this request, you know, once I send this request, the response body for valid login, once I send request, I'm supposed to see welcome David, you know, at the interface of the application, also at the back end while testing the application. And imagine you send that request, for login, and on the documentation was welcome David. On the when you tried testing the service, you just saw good to see you, David. It has deviated, from the documentation, and as a tester, you have to, log that issue. This is what was expected, from the service, from the endpoint, and this is what you get. And also, while testing API, you also check for status code, of the response body, and you also check for time, and you check for you check for you check for what did you check for? What do you check for again? I remember along the line. So majorly these are the things you look out for while testing API: the functionality, the reliability, the performance, and security too as well. So advantage of API testing. So reason the advantage of API testing is that it is time effective when compared to the GUI testing. API test automation also require less code, so it can provide fast and better test coverage. Then number two, API testing help us to reduce testing costs. With API testing, we can find minor bugs before the GUI testing, and these minor bugs will become bigger during the GUI testing. So finding those bugs in API testing will be cost effective to the company or the organization. And API testing is a language independent. Like you can use any programming language to formulate your API. Um, Another one, API testing is quite helpful in testing core functionality of the application, and we can test API without a user interface. And in GUI testing, we need to wait until the application is available to test the core functionality. So if you remember when I was explaining user interface, so whenever you're doing whenever you're performing API testing, whatever you are doing with the API services is also what you'll be doing with the GUI. GUI is just the graphical user interface, the core application itself, and you can, as I explained here, you can test you can test the API service without the GUI. And speaking of software testing, before the application is being built or developed, while you testing the test the API services, once you spot a bug, it can easily be fixed, right before the application is being built. And when the application is being built and you find those kind of bug, it is very costly and very very bogus, to fix the bug. And API testing helps us reduce risks on the system. So, so API testing, types of API testing. So number one, we have the validation testing. So validation testing occurs among the final steps and the play that are essential on the roles in the developmental process. We have the functionality testing during API. For testing the functionality of multiple units when tested together, we have the testing on API too as well. We have error detection. We have security testing. We have UI testing. We have penetration testing on API. We have force testing on API. So type of bug we encounter while performing API testing. Number one, stress, which is stress, performance, and security issue. Number two, duplicate or missing functionality. Number three, reliability issue. Number four, improper messaging. Number five, incompatible errors handling mechanism. Number six, we have multiple thread issue. Number seven, we have improper errors. So these are the kind of bugs we encounter. Sync this to your head for the future. Yeah. So API testing best approach and best practices. So as you can see, so this is just a flow of API on how API is being tested. We have the API specification review documents, and we have the test specification development documents. We have the test framework development documents. We have the test case development document, and we have the test execution and reporting document. So at the end of the test, you always give a report and report on report on documentation to the stakeholders or your project manager. So API testing approach. So these are the following points that help users to perform API testing. So number one, understanding the functionality of the API program and clearly define the scope of the program. Number two, applying test techniques such as equivalency classes, boundary value, and analysis. Also, error guessing and writing test cases for APIs. Um, we also write test cases for API. Yeah. So number three, imputing parameters for API needs to be planned and defined appropriately. Number four, creating API test cases as mentioned earlier. Number five, executing test cases and comparing expected results with actual results. I will show us a sample of API test case sheet. So API testing best practices. So we also test API to check what happens consistently and what doesn't happen. We also test for the expected results to compare to the actual results, which is the API documentation. And also we also have the group API test cases by test category. We create test cases with all possible input combinations for the complete test and coverage. We prioritize API function calls to make it easy for us to test. Then we also automate API documentation creation process and ensure good level of documentation, which is easy to understand. We create tests to handle unforeseen problem. I will explain all this later when we start doing the practical. Then we depend on manual and automation tests for better API outcome. And we before testing API, we test API manually, and we also test API, automatedly. So whenever you are testing manual, why after testing manual, whenever you test manual, whatever you got would be what you'll be using to write test scripts, to automate your API. So I will give further examples when we start the practical part. So tools used for API testing. As I explained, there are several tools we use, in the industry for API testing, depending on where you work, whichever tools is being accepted. So these are the type of tools we use for API testing. We have Postman, which is generally used. We have the testing Wiz. We have REST. We have SOAP UI. I've tried using this guy before. It's quite interesting too. And majorly I use Postman for my API testing. And we have Storm Test Builder. We have Web Inject. We have Run Scope. We have HTTP Master. We have Easy Test Maker. We have Parasoft. SOA Test. We have the Rapids and Soap Sonar. So these are API testing tools. You can pick any one of them that suits you to test your APIs. So you can also use Catalan Studio to test API. So these are more tools you can use to test API. We have the Airborne, we have the API Science. Trust me, I've never heard of this. I've never tried these guys. Haven't come close to them. Then we can use JMeter to perform API too as well. And we can use Parasoft, we can use HP QTP. We have the Tricentis on Tosca, we have the RPG to test API. So next slide is understanding Postman graphical user interface. So as seen, Postman is an API testing tool. Postman is an application used in testing APIs by sending requests to the web and getting a response from the server. And it also allows users to set up all headers and cookies the API expects, and also check the response body. A test in Postman is fundamental a JavaScript code which runs after request is being sent, and a response will be received from the server. So I'm sure we must have all downloaded Postman on our system, on our PC. Have you all downloaded Postman?
Yes, already downloaded.
Okay, we can, for those that have not downloaded Postman, we can quickly use this link and download Postman on our computer. So I'm dropping it in the chat session. So let's, for those of us that have not downloaded the Postman, I've dropped the link on WhatsApp. Just click on the download link, and let's quickly download Postman before we continue. And have you downloaded Postman? And have you downloaded Postman? Hey, have you downloaded Postman? So as seen on the screen, so this is what Postman interface look like. So if you look at the left part of the screen, we have the collection folders. So these collection folders are just the API documentation of an application that has been provided. And I was expecting you guys to ask me how is API documentation is being generated. So majorly the developers write API codes. So once API code is being written, it's being passed on to the QAs to test. If you have the GUI interface provided, that is the application itself, you can use the application, to test with the API documentation that is being provided, and also you can test with the API documentation provided too as well. And we perform API mocking. You can perform API mocking while testing application, and you can also automate API, like I explained earlier. So at the upper part of the screen, you can see where you have the methods. So if you click on this drop down button, you will see different methods, you can use to execute your API request. And this beside it, we have the URL bar. So this URL bar comprises of your base URL and your endpoints. So the base URL is always your your application URL, for example, facebook.com, and the endpoint is just you having a splash. Then at the end of the point, you have login. I will show you an example so you have a better understanding. So you have the base URL, you have the endpoint. Your endpoint could be login, your endpoint could be logout, your endpoint could be admin, your endpoint could be registration, as seen on the screen. And on the below it, we have the authorization channel, we have the header channel, we have the body channel, we have the request script channel, and we have the test channel. Then below it, we have authorization pass. So this authorization pass is just like when you log in on an application. If the application requires a token, to validate your login, a token will be generated, and same token you will copy and paste and pass into this guide to authenticate login your login on the application. And then we have the send button, we have the save button, and on the upper part of the screen we have the setting button, and also we have the like button, and we have the sync button, and we also have the network button. So this is just a snapshot. We will soon dive into the application properly. So this is the response body here, which is also called the result. So once you consume an endpoint, um, a response body is always generated, which is report. So at this part of the screen here, you will always see your response body when request is being sent. And I will take us how to create our first collection and how to execute API methods. And while testing API, sometimes as a tester, you might require to create collections yourself, and sometimes you just need to get um, the link to the API collection and just import to your Postman. I will show us all these steps. And as seen, it's all been labeled. The interface is being labeled on the screen. You can see the add new button. If you want to create a project or you want to create a collection, you can click on the add new button, which is number one. And we can see number two up here, we have the import button. If you have a pre-existing documentation, you can click on import and import the documentation. And number three, we have the runner. So the runner is just like an automation process. Once you've or executed all your endpoints manually, and you want to run all the connections all at once, to verify how many endpoint paths and how many endpoints failed. So you can just click this connection runner to run all your endpoints. And we have the the number 4 button, which is this number 4 button.
Okay.
So number 4 button is the open new tab. Maybe you need to open new tab just like you have on your browser. You can click on the open new tab and add your parameters, add your URL, and add your method and execute your and consume your endpoints. I've talked about the URL bar, and while testing too, you can set up an environment to enhance your test. So we also have the workspace button. We have the invite button number 6. We have the history button. We have the collection folder button. We have the request tab, and number 10 we have the HTTP request. That is the method. We have the request URL. We have the save button. We have the params button. We have the authorization button. We have the header button. We have the body. We have the pre-request scripts. We have the tests. So all these are just the labeled interface, as seen on the screen. So let me go to the application itself. So as seen on the screen, so this is my Postman interface, and as explained, you can see the new button. So if I click on this button, maybe I need to create a collection folder. So I can click on that button and add new API documentation or API HTTP request or environment or workspace or collection or maybe a mock server or API documentation or sorry or API. Sunday, can you mute that person? So we have also the tab, the new tab. Have you seen the person? So we have the new tab. So you can just click on this guy here and add new tab to your API collection. And as seen here, these are the collections I've worked on previously. And we have the same button. We have the environment set up here. So these are the listed environments I've created on my Postman. So this environment basically it helps, in the sense of imagine I have an API collection I'm working on, and suddenly there's an upgrade or there is an additional functionality, on the application, and I've already executed consume all the endpoint, and an update is being made. Well, let me use for example. Imagine I I have this URL. So if you look at this URL is being scripted. If you over on it, if I over on it, you're supposed to see um, this guy, this HP, whatever. But because of the environment I've set, so that is why I'm having that base URL. So if tomorrow comes and the URL changes, instead of me editing all all the endpoints, and you can have as many many as possible endpoints. You can have like maybe 1,000 endpoints or 2,000 endpoints. You don't have to come here and start editing everything one by one. So once your environment is being set up, like what I have here, I can just come to this guy here and click on this eye icon and come to edit and go to the initial environment I've created. So in replace of this base underscore URL, in replace of this URL is what I have base underscore URL. So I can just update the endpoint here, the URL here, and save back my work and continue my test instead of editing all the endpoints one by one. So it saves stress and headache. So it's always important you create your environment while testing your API. Yes, it won't come out because you don't have any. You have not done anything on API. So in this class we will pick up. We will create another a collection ourselves. So I want to confirm how many of us have finished the course I dropped on Friday.
No, sir, not
I'm
finished working on that.
Reading.
Haven't
yes,
finished yet.
I am also working on it. I'm listening a voice.
Almost.
I'm still working
Okay.
on it.
Okay. I will stop here today. I Let me drop the course link again for us. Yes, because this it shouldn't be looking like magic to us once we start doing practical. So I want us to finish up the course before Wednesday. So we will meet up on Wednesday again. So by Wednesday, I want us to all have finished the course.
Okay, sir.
Okay, sir.
Sir, sir, hello, sir.
Yes, please.
If we have blockers, we can meet you concerning them. Because I stopped because I was stuck at some point. Hello?
Please hold on. Hold on, please. So I've dropped the course link. Please, let's finish up by Wednesday. Then Wednesday we will dive into the practical fully. So once you click on the link, it should take you to this page. And on this page, as you can see, we have the introduction to Postman. We have the installation of Postman and launching student application with Docker. You don't really need to do this. This is just CI/CD for Postman. So we have the CRUD operation with Postman, and we have how to create. So this is the most important. This Postman collection. So here you know how to create your collection, how to set environment variable, the global variable, environment variable, collection variable, then creating collections in Postman, and how to do Postman, how to do collection runner in Postman. Then authentication in Postman, and this is very important to test assertions in Postman. So let's try and finish up by Wednesday.
So you said we should skip section 3.
Yes, you can skip 3. You don't really need 3 for now. When you start doing CSCD, you can download
Okay,
it.
Mr. David, please, I have a question.
All right, please shoot.
Okay, so although it's not in Postman, because I posted it on the group WhatsApp yesterday, I'm having issue with with Selenium. I tried automating Facebook sign up on Selenium, but I don't know how to get the web element to enable me capture date of death. To enable me capture a particular date of death, like the number, the month, and the year. I couldn't do that. I tried doing it last time, but it doesn't work for me. What should I do?
Same way you search the locator for username and login. The same way you will find you follow everything step by step. Let me give you the logic while performing automation. So before you perform automation, you must have done it manually. For example, I need to perform a sign up automation test for Facebook. I will come on Facebook manually. I launch the URL, click on the create account button. After clicking on the create account button, I need to enter my first name. I need to enter my last name. I need to enter my phone number, my password, date of birth, the gender, and click on sign up button. So in your automation test, the same way you find experts to click on create new account. So once that is executed, you go to the second line of your script. Okay, get the experts or get the locator for this field. Send in keys, your name. Get locator for user for surname. Pass in the keys. Same thing for mobile. Same thing for password. Then this guy here, you will find locator for this guy. This drop down button I'm clicking on. Get the locator. So once you get the locator, once I click on this guy, you also find locator for this elements. So wherever number the date you decide to pick, same step you will follow to execute all your tests. Then click on sign up button and see if your test complete signing up for Facebook. There's no any other way.
Okay, thank you. I will try that out.
All right. So we will stop here for today. So the next class we will continue on Postman automation. I mean on Postman testing, API testing on Postman. So we can start the course all over again, and we should all try and finish up by Wednesday.
All right, thank you.
Sir, can you please share these slides?
Okay.
David, I have a question.
All right. I'm listening.
Okay, sorry. I have a expired link of a base camp. So what will I do?
I didn't get
How
that.
to
Sorry.
now you're listening me?
Yes, I'm listening.
Okay. I said I have expired my session of a base camp. So how to re enter into the base camp?
Okay. Basecamp. Okay, I think the trial version is expired. Oh, okay. All right. I will set up. Oh, okay. I'll fix this later. I'll get back to you guys on the WhatsApp group.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Excuse
All
me.
right.
Excuse me. I've just downloaded the Postman, but I can't see it in on my computer, so I don't know where it has gone.
Any question? If it's no,
Yes, boss.
any question?
No, no, I'm trying to download the Postman, so none for now. And then we just
Okay.
go through the video sent.
Okay.
So
Yeah, although I
please, I have.
still have challenges with the selenium, but I'll reach out to you on that.
Okay. So what the challenges you had?
Okay, so I'd downloaded all the jars, the WebDriver, and
Okay.
yes, and then also the one for the client. So I tried to write the script, but I was getting an error that the jars I was using it's not corresponded with what I was working with. So I don't know, maybe
The
I'm not
jar.
good at yeah.
Um. Um. Can you share your screen? Let me see. Um. Let us share. Can you share your screen? Let's view
I'm
it.
using my phone. I'm using my phone for the
Oh, you are
call.
using your phone.
Yes.
Mm. We'll look at that later.
All right. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Excuse me, David.
Yes.
I've tried to download Postman, but when I want
No
to
one else.
install it,
Yeah. Please come again.
I've tried to install Postman,
Okay.
but when I try to install it, it's telling me please purchase WinRAR license. Then it
Purchase
says that
Wind driver license.
WinRAR is not free. WinRAR.
Did you use the link I sent to download
Yes, please.
Postman?
Yes, I used the link.
Yes. Hold on. I just clicked on the link now, and if you are using, depending on the OS you are using, for example, I'm using the Mac OS. So once I click on this button, it's supposed to take me to the download link, and the Postman application start downloading. Can you see this on your screen?
Yes, please. I saw that and I clicked on that
So,
link.
if you are using the Windows, depending on the version, either you are using 32-bit or 64-bit. So click on the bit you are using and download. So once you this link, I don't think you should have problem. You should have any issues downloading the application.
Okay, David, I have another question.
Okay, okay, sir. All right. All right. Just a minute, guys. I'll join back. Yeah. Hello, guys.
Yes, we are with you.
Yes, boss, we are with you.
Yeah. So, just a recap for today. So, just a recap for today. We explained what is API, and and we mentioned API stands for application interface, application programming interface, and we furthered the explanation of how API works. I used the analogy of you walking into a restaurant and placing an order, for burger, and the waiter get your order and pass it to the chef in the kitchen. So the waiter is standing as an API service, in between you and the chef in the kitchen, to get your burger ready and pass on to you. And I also mentioned the scenario, of login of a login scenario on Facebook. You know, once you pass in your credentials, which is your username and your password, and you click on login button. As soon as you click on the login button, API service has sent a request to the server, that is to the database, to fetch in your details, to authenticate your details. Okay, if you have an existing data, in the database, with the login credentials, and give you access to your Facebook dashboard. And if peradventure you don't have existing data, in the server, and you try to perform a login request on the application, you will get a error response message, back from the server, saying, okay, your data is not available in the server or the database, or you passed in an invalid credentials. So that is what API does. It perform authentication, verification, and other services you can think of. And I mentioned the reason why we test API. We test API to validate the response, from the application, and we also test API for for security of the application, reliability of the application, and functionality of the application. And also, we talked about setting up API environments, which we'll be doing practical on in the next class. And we also talked about creating a collection folder, which we'll be doing practical on in the next class. And also, we talked about different type of API methods. We talked about the get request. So let me talk more about the API, the methods. So as mentioned, we have the get request, we have the post request, we have the put request, and we have the delete request. So get request is just a method of you, as explained earlier, with the login scenario, you are sending in your credentials, which is your username and password, to get access to the application dashboard. So that is just a get request. You are sending in a request. Okay, get this data, validate it if this data exists in the server or the database. So that's a get request. So another, and the next one is a post request, a post method. So a post method is just like you posting you're posting the data. An example is a sign up. You are creating an account, on Facebook. You are signing up for an account on Facebook. So you are telling Facebook to save in your username, your your password, your first name, your last name, your phone number. You are posting those information into Facebook server. So if you have to log in on Facebook again, you will perform a get request. That means you are getting your credentials, back from the Facebook server. And another one is a put request, a put method. So a put method is just a form of way, to update your pre-existing data, that is being saved, that is being stored in the server, which can be the same thing as patch, as a patch method too. So it's just like updating your you just like adding more information. Maybe at the point of registration on Facebook, you you pass in your first name and your surname. You pass in your phone number. Probably maybe at the phone number section, they have the part for your office line or your home line. So you just pass in your home line, and okay, tomorrow you just say, okay, let me just update the office line. You want to pass in the office line. So well, a put method is just like you posting more information, to the server. Then we also have the update method. So update method is just same way. Okay, you enter the wrong information and you want to update the information, and trust me, not you don't have access to update some fields, in on the application. You are limited to what you can you can update on the application. I know some application, once you pass in your first name and last name, you can update it, but you can always update your username, change your username, or change your password. So that is an example of update method. And then the delete method. So the delete method majorly is okay, or you get pissed with the application, and you don't want to use the application anymore. So you can just go to the application settings, um, go to profile or whatever, and deactivate the account, or maybe delete the account. Or it's just a form of way, deleting the data, from the server, I mean. So another, which of the methods I've not mentioned. So I've mentioned everything already. So also we talked about the type of output the type of output of an API service. So we talked about any type of data. We talked about the status. The status is just to validate which of the endpoints pass or fail. And we talked about the call another service, which I use an example of you using an Uber application. And on Uber application, maybe you need to navigate to where you're going. Basically, the Uber app had its own map, but okay, you prefer to use Google Map, and I mentioned about API keys and integration. So Uber have integrated Google Map API key into their app. So that is why you can click on Google Map to choose as your preferred navigation um, navigation whatever, to get you to where you're going. So that output there is called call another API function, or call another service. So okay, I didn't mention status too as well. Okay, so considering API testing, so there are status, there are type of status code you can get, while testing API. So we have the 200 status. You, you people are not, you are not even taking notes. Eh? Guys, you need to be taking notes. You need to, so speaking of API status code, so we have different type of status code, and you should also look out for status code while testing API. So let me go to the interface. So imagine you sending a request. Can you see my screen?
Yes,
Hello
yes,
guys, can you see my
Yes.
screen?
Yes, I
Yo,
can see your screen.
so speaking of the status code, this is the status code.
yes.
Yeah. So as you can see, we have different type of status code. We have the 200 status code. We have the 201 status code. As a QA, you must know all these codes. You must know their function. So if they ask you, if you see a status code of 500, what does it mean? They can ask you in an interview, so you have to memorize all these things as a tester. So we have the 500 status code, we have the 404 status code, we have the 201 status code, we have the 202 status code, and etc. If you Google status code for Postman, you will see the list of them. So for example now, this 200 status code says, okay, it's a standard response for a successful request that is being passed. Maybe you perform a login request. You're supposed to get a status code of 200. And remember, I mentioned, why you testing API? You are testing API to validate the API documentation that is already been created, for the application. Imagine on the API documentation document as a 200 status code, and you tested manually. You send in login request. You send in login request, and you have a 404 status code, but you are still able to log in on the application. So as a QA, you are supposed to report that. And I mentioned there's a test case sheet. We always we QAs we create for API testing. API testing also requires test case. We will try and remind me in the next class. So I will show us the sample of this. What? No. There's always one status code. So and this is a status code there. So so you are expected to see 200, but you have a 404 status code, but still you are still able to log in on the application. For 404 for 404 status code, once you perform a login request for and you get the 404 response code, means maybe your username is not correct. As you can see, it says invalid phone number or password. This is an invalid login request, and I have 200 status code as okay is a successful request, which is not meant to be. So I'm supposed to get a 404 status code saying okay invalid if that such is not present in the server. But for this application, this is how it's being created. Whether you send in whether you get back error response message saying maybe 404 request, you should still get 200. So as discussed, that is how the application is being programmed. So whatever request you send, you should get, except for 500, which is server error. So there are sometimes maybe you send in a request and you get a 500. So 500 error status code means the issue the error is from the server. Maybe the server is not up at the moment, so you will get a 500 status code. So that is just brief explanation about status code. And another thing you check for is time. For example, still on login scenario, as a user, you are trying to log in on application. How many minutes should login last while trying to log in on an application? Can you just give me a sketch? How many minutes do you think? Okay, once I click on login, 5 seconds. Interesting. Yeah, with fast internet, with good bandwidth, 5 seconds or 10 seconds. You can log in. But for every application have their documentation key. For a user to login shouldn't exit anything more than 1 minute. And while you testing this API service, for the login functionality, you pass in the parameter, you pass in the body, the phone number, password, user type, and you click on send. And the login is, and they won't be, by the time you got the response body, at this part of the screen, maybe you have invalid login or you're able to log in successfully, and you check the time here, you already have 5 minutes. That is a field you have to report. That is a bug, so you have to report that. And and um, you the size too as well. You look out for this. Then this but I'm already doing the practical part already. So as you can see, we have the parameters. While testing APIs, we always pass in parameters. We always pass in authorization if it's required. We always pass in header if it's required. We always pass in body if required. Most time, your post request always requires you to pass in body because you are posting data, into the server. And here we have the pre-request scripts for automation. Maybe you need to automate your test scripts. For example, let's say, okay, once I log in on this application, this login, a token would be generated. Okay, I want to say, okay, use this token and set it up in my environment. Then anytime I come to pre-request script, I should always get the previous data that I'm supposed to use to execute another test. So that is what this pre-request script does. Then I also have the test. So as you can see, once you click on this test, here you can write your test script, you know. And to enhance our test, we have some sample snippet here. Like for example, get variables, get collection variables, set an environment variables. So these are just sample snippet we can use to enhance our test. And another good example is this status code here. So let me give you a good example. So let's assume I want to test this login rider and I want to add a test script. So this snippet is also an example of a test script. Let's say I want to add 200 status code. Once I click on this 200, it will add the test script into here. These are just sample test scripts, and you can also generate test script yourself, So I have said pn test status code to be 200, function pn response body to have status code 200. So by default, this login test is supposed to have a 404 because it's an invalid login. and I send the request. And I send the request. By default, okay, this guy shows 404. And if I come to my test result here, you can see this test already passed, saying 200, which is meant to be 404, by default because it was invalid login. So you understand what test work. So you add in test to validate your response body. So by the time you do all that manually for all the each endpoint, so you can say, okay, you want to run your collection, with test runner. So let me show you an example of the test runner. So let's imagine now this is a collection folder, and I have almost 1,000 endpoints in the collection folder. So these are the endpoints. So you can see login, verify account, reset password, and etc. And I've already tested everything manually. I've already added test scripts, to the each and every endpoint. So, and I said, okay, let me run it. Running an API collection is almost like you automating them. So you can just say run collection. So this running collection will run all the tests. So it will run all the tests. So while it run all the tests, so this is what it's going to look like. It will tell you how many tests passed. It will tell you how many tests failed. So these are the sample tests. Like for example, now I said update update the record, and the status said assert expected error message, no account found with auth ID. So these are the sample of tests I've already added to the previous to the pre-existing endpoint I have in the collection folder. Yeah. So next class we will create collection on our own. We will test. We'll add tests to it, then we will run ourselves. Pachiko. So guys, did you get that? So
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
yeah, so that is a recap for today. So see you all in the next class, and enjoy the rest of your day. And don't forget to finish your course. I'm repeating again. Finish your course on before Wednesday, and on Wednesday we will meet up again. So will there be any question?
Mr. Ade,
Yes.
in such a case where
You want to subscribe?
like you want to buy card
Okay. Yeah.
from your G, let's say from your bank app.
Yes.
So and you maybe after inputting all the necessary information, so
Okay.
you want maybe the card of 1,500.
Yes.
And by the time you check your balance, without that, so only 500 naira that was removed, or you were credited 1,500 naira card. Can we say it's the API that has issue, or what can we put out?
I wish it can happen to me.
Really? I don't know if it is.
Yeah. As I said, that must have been an error from the system.
Is it for the server?
No, that is from the system itself. Probably you. Probably. Yeah. So maybe instead of picking your account, wants to charge someone else's account.
She picked my
But-
account. Sometimes they will tell me of 500 instead of 1,000.
And that is the same thing.
Okay.
Yeah. GB is via your mobile banking now.
Then
Yeah.
remove the money later.
Is it GT? GT
Yeah.
has money.
Same here. I was credited 70,000.
I wish it happens to me, sure.
So it's not even
One time too like that. It's a system error, and it can also be an human error too. I remember one time like that, I just received money in my account. And trust me, as Lagos boy, I lavish the money. I want the money, I chop am. Nobody come hold me. Nobody come to hold me till date. Nobody called me.
They remove it immediately.
Nobody called me.
That teller is a trouble.
So it can be human error or a system error. So it can be system glitch. You know, one time like that, MTN too. You know, people were getting free airtime.
Yes.
You die one code like that, and you have like 100K in your airtime. So those things are just system glitch. It happens sometimes.
Could it be that they have maybe
It can be an attack, or it can be anything. It can be anything that happens. Yes. So that is why we testers
That's what they said.
we do, you know.
It can cost so many damage. It can
Yeah.
lead to death.
Yes. So that is why we need
Lose all
to
your
test.
money. You can get attention down there. Okay.
So in absence of questions, we should call it a wrap for today. So see you guys on Wednesday.
Thank you so much.
Just of the day.
Thank you, sir.